Last couple of days, I haven't been streaming very much. I've been really busy at work, getting things ready and getting my Mac up and running, and testing out different virtual machine configurations, seeing how much Kubernetes I can actually run on there, as well as playing around with Elasticsearch and other things. But here's the stuff that I've written about since then. And what I want to focus on tonight is I have to update the Boost content, the first few days of the Boost content, to cover Mac, Windows, and Linux. In the past, we've only done Linux. And let me explain what I mean by that. Well, I mean, if you want to go read it, you can go read this Zet right here. It's in RDBX Rob /Zet on GitHub. But this gives the summary of it. To be a technologist, you need to know Mac, Windows, and Linux. A huge revelation to most people. But you'd be surprised how few people in the tech industry actually know how to use the operating system that they don't already use. So you get people that are very tribal about their operating systems, and that hurts them. So I mean, so if the goal of the Boost is to get you up and running with the tools and practices and programming of a technologist, then we need to make sure that we cover all operating systems as the most essential tool in your collection. So it's important to note that, like, for example, Windows owns 3D, SolidWorks, anything in the 3D space. Microsoft invented 3D, so you got to use it. Macs are the best for writing and sound engineering and media and things like that. And then, of course, Linux servers for hosting everything, the internet. Everything. But I think it's important that we talk about the fact that you actually don't need Linux on the desktop at all. People like the Linux on the desktop. Linux on the desktop is fun and all, and I'm not saying don't do it, but it's not essential. What is essential is learning Linux server. The thing I want to say about this is that, I like making this comparison to Doctor Strange, the Ancient One, how she learns dark magic in order to fight off, the evil. And people get kind of mad at me for saying that you should learn Windows and Apple, and God knows I don't love Apple, but you got to learn it and where it's going. But after reading about KCLI and Vert Lightning, I really want to back the libvirt project. So I'm not sure how much relevance this has. I actually have other priorities before I come back to it. So I'll be putting this aside until if you have the choice, I would get a Mac laptop, period. And I would get a Windows desktop, the high power, like for gaming and stuff, and as well as other stuff. And I would have a Linux server. And you can have a Linux virtual machine server on your desktop or on your Mac than Mac does on Windows, because you can't run Mac on Windows, right? Mac has hands down the far superior user interface and command line. Plus, you're getting an experience with Unix, which I recently discovered was an important difference. Bad information out on the internet about commands and stuff that are not based on the Unix versions of the commands. Here's 3 examples. Sed-I is a GNU thing. grep-P is a GNU thing. Make directory-P is a GNU thing. PS is a GNU thing. If you learn it wrong, you'll be frustrated. Mac for technical stuff, then you can always run Windows in a Mac, and you can run Linux in the Mac, which I'm going to do. That's going to be the main thing for the Boost. So if you get the Mac, you can always run that with VirtualBox on anything, unless it's an M1, in which case VirtualBox does not work. You can always buy VMware, which will work on an M1. That's been bona fide. It's been confirmed. It's VMware Fusion. So if you had to spend some money, you can do it and make your Mac run Windows or Linux easily at native levels, even with GPU pass-through. A Mac laptop is hands down the best tool to get, in my opinion. It's just so easy. It just works. It's compatible with anything you might want to do out there when you're wandering around. You can attach it to random printers and have it work. It just works. Besides productivity and work and sound engineering and videos and media and stuff. Like, for example, if you're buying a laptop for gaming, you're an idiot. Because it's a waste of money and energy. It's going to weigh 15 pounds, and it's going to need a charger cord anyway before to finish and game on the laptop. And I have one. I've used it for years. But I've been able to manage it, and my business has allowed me to, until the most recent job I have where they do not allow it. So be careful. If you become dependent on it, you might not be able to use it in the workplace. So prepare yourself for that as well against dual booting. I cannot overstate my disagreement with the suggestion to dual boot based on years of objective experience helping beginners. So often they blow away one or the other operating system in the process during upgrades, and it's a pain in the butt. Containerization and virtualization, you don't need to dual boot. There is definitely something out there that will support you instead of dual booting. VirtualBox, if you want to spend the extra money and get VMware, which supports pass-through GPU and all kinds of stuff, but don't dual boot. Just don't do it. No. So if you're gonna dual boot at all, I would suggest doing multiple hard drives for sure. If you're gonna dual boot, also install Windows first, and then we do Mint the dual boot after that. That's what we did. That particular method will work until it comes time to do your upgrade. And every time somebody gets screwed up, it's because they have to upgrade Windows, and Windows sees this partition over there and it doesn't do it. Besides, the upgrade path for Windows never works. You usually just need to reinstall all of Windows. The only people I would recommend dual booting to is people who are okay wiping their computer completely every 6 months, 3 to 6 months, which I do anyway because of viruses and stuff, and reinstalling both operating systems from scratch efficiently and quickly. If you can do that, fine, dual boot. I just really, really can't overstress enough how bad dual booting is. Only the most experienced people should be playing with dual booting. And I got to say, the Linux Mint is really clean dual booting setup. So, there's that. Normally, though, when you're considering a dual boot, it's usually because you want to do one thing and the other thing. And in practical terms, it is such a pain in the ass to reboot your computer to do the other thing that you want to do that you end up not doing it. And you don't get that. Well, at the VM, you just pop up the VM for Mac. It's much more reliable. It's a paid-for product. It does dual booting pretty reliably for Mac. But dual booting Linux, setting up a Linux dual boot with Windows is a totally different beast. So, yeah. So last night, I was like, I have to cover all three operating system setups for the boost, because I was going through it myself at work. I was like, people will die if they don't know how to set up Mac with Brew. Or people will die if they don't know how to do WSL2 on their own. The truth is that those topics are covered on the internet. I don't think they're covered well. And I don't know how relevant they are to the infrastructure boost that we've been doing, which is primarily focused on Linux command line, server installation and setup, and that kind of thing. So yeah, let me talk about that. So yeah, the plan is to cover Go along with the other languages, and to learn all the languages at the same time. So we're going to try to make that work. It'll be small activities in all 4 or 5 languages. So PCRE grep lets you use grep. If it's not on the system, you'll get an error and you'll know what you're dealing with. But if you use grep-P, it'll find grep and do it fine, but it won't do what you expect, and you'll get a bug. If you are a fan of Brew and you want to make your Mac feel like a Linux machine, there's many ways. There's lots of stuff you can install, but as of 2019, with default names, it's been deprecated because it breaks your Mac, and don't do it. But that means you have to do more work to update your path. One of the things that people are really going to yell at me about is they're going to see in my dot files now that I use userbini and vbash, and I'm like, finally, Mr. Rob caught up with the world. You know what? I was doing that when you were in diapers, probably. And I stopped doing it because it's insecure. But for personal things, it's not that bad. Why on earth would I do userbini and vbash, you ask, or userbini and vpython or Ruby or whatever? The Ruby people started it. That's because what it does is it gives you the bash where it is. And my dot files are now running on Mac as well as Linux, and I want it to just work. I realize that that's like pretty lazy because I hate it. But I still think that the practicality of these type of scripts to do it outweighs the problematic method of changing. Absolutely clear on this. I still hate this. I am okay with it for personal stuff, as I always have said. But if you do this in a professional script, you're an idiot. If you're doing it in a script that has to be run everywhere, maybe not. So let me give you an example. Once upon a time, I was installing Docker, and I used the Docker script, right? Well, this phenomenally amazing shell script that's written to install Docker does this very thing, but that script has to run anywhere and on anything, and that's legit. Commands in the shebang line. I mean, can you imagine? That would be so great. That's essentially what this does. Is it says, "Hey, go make sure you find it." It just makes it really really important that you know exactly what's in your path at any time. Um, and as a personal desktop thing, it's not bad. Outline. I put some themes for each day. We have 6 weeks of programming. Um, we're going to be doing, the Unix thing for a day. We're going to be editing for a day. We're going to be doing, all right, so we're going to be doing editing for a day. We're going to be boosting command line skills with Bash for a full day, working with structured data for a day, parsing it, internet stuff from the command line, networking a full day, secure shell and security for GPG one day, getting started with Git for a full day, Docker for a day, and then 6 weeks of programming. Unlike other times, we're only going to spend one day on making websites, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and doing it with Pandoc and publishing it for free as a part of your portfolio creation. And then we'll talk for a full day about what's the next step, how to communicate, how to connect with the community so you can get those opportunities. 2022 one boost. We didn't do a lot of coding in there, so you might want to just do a little bit of coding on your own and get used to that. If you have a terminal command line, maybe practice writing your own utilities in Bash, or doing some other organized coding online. I mean, this wasn't a very long stream, but I had fun organizing some more content for the boost. I feel like I'm more okay with the amount of content we have to do in the next 82 days to generate that. And hopefully you'll come on back. I will be doing more streaming, co-working this week as well.